Welcome back guys for another video. I'm about to run a game that I just played before and just show you how sometimes just analysing a game and working out the move can make a difference. And just using different principles as well. Okay, so I was black in this situation. He opens up d4. I respond with e5. He attacks the pawn. I defend the pawn. He attacks the knight. And if you remember what the move was last video when I did this position as well. So last time what happened was he took here and I doubled up my pawns. But we discussed about what I'm going to do next. And then that helps the structure in the game. Okay, so when you do this move, it doesn't really make sense why I did that, because the reason why you usually do that move is to protect that square. So generally you do that if you want to keep my bishop away, but at this stage there's no threat there, so it's really just a wasted move. But eventually if I did open up here, and that's actually a good move, because now I can't move here and I can't move here, so it restricts the bishop. So if you haven't got any good moves, sometimes it's good to actually restrict your opponent as well. So, but in this case, he probably did it a move too early. So I'm attacking the bishop, just encouraging to see if he wants to take. And generally speaking, when you keep the bishop here, if you run back and try and keep the pin, usually it's because there's a pin, but in this case there's no pin, there's no real threat. So if he just takes the knight, I'm just going to take back or take back. But if there was a pin here with the king, you're actually restricting one of my minor pieces in the game. So in this case you would just keep the bishop there, keeping the pin as long as possible. So in this case you'd just move back there and keep the pin as much as you can. But we know there's no pin this time, so either you should take or you should just run away. But I'd probably just run away. So he runs away, and I think that's his first mistake. So the reason is there's no pin here. So if there's a pin, definitely keep the pressure on me, but there's no pin, so he should actually go back. So he should actually go back to probably this square or even this square. I keep the pressure on because now, look, I just let him know that I'm going to castle this side. Because we say about king safety. King safety, we want to keep the 3 pawns in front tidy. So now we've just given away that we're going to castle on this side. Sometimes in games, if you want to know where your opponent's going to castle, sometimes you can see by their pawn structures and they can give it away if they're decent players. Okay, so he's putting pressure on the f7 square. This square is very dangerous at the beginning of the game because it's just the biggest weakness for black. So if he goes there, then it really puts 2 attackers on this square. So we've really got to be mindful when you're playing as black, just to be careful of that square at the start of the game. So I'm doing a block now. So I'm defended this twice. He's actually attacking it twice. But we can make the exchange because we've got 2 defenders against these 2 attackers at this stage. He accepts, and also we're still defending here as well. Okay, so I'm going on with the exchange. I was happy to do that, and hopefully he takes the knight, but he doesn't take the knight. He's going to open up the bishop. That'd be a good square for the bishop. Not a threat yet, so we just ignore it. So we're still continuing development. So we didn't want to bring our queen out early. We just wanted to continue development, try and get all these pieces out before our opponent. So on this side, he hasn't got any pieces out here. This piece is still, it's very active. This piece at the moment it's a future defender, so he's actually pretty good, but this rook's still not doing anything in the game. That's one of those other moves where not sure why he thought that would be a good move. Normally you'd want to stop this move. Technically speaking, it does stop that move, but he just kicked me off anyway. Plus he's still got to move his knight there as well. I do have, it is kind of a threat there, so I can see it after looking at it for a little bit. So I castle. He does the move. I told you that was a big threat. So I decide to take on the bishop. The problem is here is I do weaken this diagonal. So this is a terrible move unless I can get this bishop. If I can get this bishop, then I feel a lot better. But if I can't get the bishop, this could be pretty bad. And now this piece now is pinned. So this is very pinned. So this could be actually a mistake on my part. So he runs away. Now I want to trade. I want to get rid of this bishop. Once I get rid of that bishop, I will feel a lot safer, especially with this diagonal. It's just so dangerous, that diagonal. Alright, so he doesn't realise that I want to do the trade. Okay, I accept the trade now, and he accepts. He doubles these pawns as well, so I'm not really sure. So he should have taken here, because the thing is, this guy's undefended as well. So if he went there, he could have attacked me there. So it was probably another mistake that I actually did, was leave this guy hanging. And that's one thing that we end up doing, is leaving our pieces hanging. Okay, this guy's hanging as well. And also remember what I said, that now the pawns have got 3 islands. So if we end up making an end game on this game, we could actually be very comfortable in this game. And plus, we've got both pieces attacking this pawn. So he's threatening here. So that's actually a good move. So he's trying to get in the center here. And plus I can't move up to take the pressure on that knight. I can take the trade if I want to move and lose the bishop as well. But I'm not sure if I want to do that or not. So now I forked the king and the bishop. So this bishop's quite dangerous, especially with the pin. So I'm happy to do a trade. He has to move. So when it's the knight actually checking the king, it's the only piece on the board that if it checks the king has to move. Nothing can block the knight from check unless you can capture the knight. Okay, so that's a really key thing to remember. So I take, he takes. So I move back the bishop, because remember, so I'm not sure if he didn't have to take there at all, so he is probably better off taking here. So he is probably better off taking that bishop. But sometimes what happens is we get spiteful with pieces. So if your opponent takes one of your minor or major pieces, we feel inclined to get that back. We want to take that piece because we feel angry about that piece taking out. So that's just something we have to be careful of. Don't always go straight for the piece that caused you harm. There could be a better piece that you could be targeting. Okay, so there's definitely, this is a great structure. And now I'm putting pressure on the pawn. So remember, this pawn is always weak when this bishop is not at home. So as soon as this bishop leaves, this pawn can often be left behind and be forgotten about. Okay, so now we're eyeing off this square. So this square is very dangerous for our opponent, because if we can get to this square, he could be in checkmate right there. But he does have a defender. So we probably want to remove the defender. And that's how we do it. So we move the pawn, put the pressure on. So he attacks and it takes the pawn. He knows that it's a big threat. And we accept. And he defends the pawn. So this guy knows that this square is very important to him. If he loses that square, he loses the game. We still have this piece. Maybe I didn't see it in the game. We'll see the next move if I did. Yeah, maybe I missed that move. So that would have been a good move as well. But if I move here, our opponent could block with the knight or the queen and attempt to exchange queens. So he's moved the pawn. Not really sure about that move. I don't think he knows what he's doing at this stage. What he could probably do is move the rook down, target down here, and start targeting the bishops. That'd be pretty good. If you could have a look at any other moves he could possibly do in this position, would be really good. So maybe the queen across here, try and control this square. And then possibly, if he did get to this square, he could threaten checkmate as well, especially with the rook. Oh, and I haven't said this too. When the queen and a piece is next to it, and they're ready to attack, they call that a battery. So if the queen was here, and the rook was there, they call that a battery. Okay, so that would be a battery if the queen was here. Okay, so I attack because these bishops are very powerful at the moment. Just a beautiful square there. And if we take here, he still runs at threat. We could move the rook here as well, so then this square becomes irrelevant. So even if we do force this pawn to move, we've got the rook here to target the queen. So we need to always look at decent lines and try and get the best positions for our opponent, for our pieces. So he runs away. But the problem is, do you remember what square I said that was very important? Or was this square? But as soon as he leaves this square, he makes a square vulnerable. Can you see which square that he just weakened? Just take a moment to look. Okay, I'm going to play that now. So he actually made this square weak. That was the only defender to that. So, and he also resigned in that move. So, alright, thanks guys. Hopefully you find this video handy. And I'll see you in the next video. And just remember, next time is just always look for your opponent's moves as well as your own. So we can actually learn from our opponent's mistakes as well. And yeah, just thanks and keep watching. See you next time. Go.